Hey everybody, I'm Bradley Hasemeyer. Welcome to Innovators Powered by Best Buy. Today we're talking about this. This is Clicks, and I'm here with the founders of Clicks, Click and Clack. What's up, gentlemen? So glad to have you here, Michael and Jeff. First off, we are both in audio and visual, and I got to just say, we got Michael in the sound booth, we got Jeff in his office, and you can already tell just by what you guys are wearing what you both bring to the table. So I'm excited about how you guys connected. We've got maybe Paisley's. What is on your shirt, Michael?
You know what's funny? I don't know. I think these are some kind of vegetation or perhaps broccoli florets. I don't know. I wanted to wear my lobsters and sailboats, but it was too busy. I had
too much. It's too much. And Jeff in the boardroom blue. That's great. I love it. So let's start at the very top. How you guys met, and you know, a lot of times business co-founders are like, oh, we met in business school, getting our MBA. How did you meet, and how did this idea come about?
What would you say, Jeff? Would you say we were coming from the diametric opposite sides of the tech media divide? Is that
I think that's a fair way to put it. And I think Bradley's already painting this picture of corporate Jeff and fun Michael. I just want to know who's Click and who's Clack.
Your words, not mine. That is totally. That's the way you interpreted that.
I was going to say one of my greatest surprises when meeting Jeff was that his appearance deceives, because he's almost more fun than I am, but he's still the adult in the room. So
we did come at it from different perspectives.
Yeah.
You know, there's a fun game we can play. Let's introduce each other. So Michael Fisher, aka Mr. Mobile, one of the most prolific tech reviewers that's out there, takes a very journalistic approach to reviewing tech, making technology fun. Has been a longtime lover of buttons and technology that brings, you know, the joy of analog to the modern day smartphone. You know, he comes at it from that side. My background, I've worked in consumer tech for ages and came at it more from a product marketing side. I don't know how you'd describe me, Michael, but we certainly come at it from different points of view.
We certainly do, but I think, well, Jeff is quite a bit more skilled at the product marketing side than a lot of other people I have met, because when he is talking, I am not instinctively filled with revulsion, frankly, because, you know, I admire authenticity above all, and Jeff actually is excited about technology in a way that I think you know, a lot of people who happen to be in jobs that are alongside technology maybe are not necessarily. So when we met for the first time, we were already teammates. You know, we're separated by some several hundred miles. But when we met for the first time in person, it was in Brooklyn. The design of Clicks had been finalized. We were kind of just figuring out the details, and figuring out those details was done over ice cream and drinks with our fellow co-founders. And those 2 days haggling over where apostrophes should go and what materials should be used elsewhere. That was some of the most fun I had, and I didn't expect it.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
So I guess let's back up just a hair, because I want to hear about how this came about. I want to hear, you know, the bar napkin to now it's going to be in Best Buy, that strategy, that story. But I also want to just get off of the top. What is Clicks? So people know exactly what we're talking about, since this is a brand new product.
Jeff,
let me cover that part first, and then Michael can start the story, and I can, you know, bring the story home. So in its simplest form, Clicks is a keyboard accessory for your iPhone. When you add your phone to Clicks, you get the benefits of a full tactile QWERTY keyboard, but then so much more. You get a bunch of screen real estate back because you don't have the keyboard taking up your display. You get the joy of tactile typing, so you can almost type with your eyes closed. And even beyond that, there are all sorts of new benefits of buttons that come with a modern smartphone. Imagine turning your keyboard into a remote control for your life. So being able to call your partner, summon a ride share, lock and unlock doors, even start your coffee maker at the push of a button. It's really a whole new way to extend the value of your iPhone and experience your modern smartphone.
And in terms of how it got started, I think we have several other co-founders who, you know, we all kind of came in roughly the same time, and one of them was our dear old friend Crackberry Kevin, and gave me a call one day. He said, "I have to show you something that it doesn't exist yet, but it might exist at some point, and if you show anyone else, I will kill you. please don't do that. Okay.
Great.
He
Okay.
sends me this kind of render of what clicks would eventually become, and I had what Kevin calls a like a whole body yes. I don't know if you're familiar with this. This is a very
No.
like my brain, my gut, and my heart all at the same time were like, oh, absolutely, yes.
Wow.
I can't believe this doesn't exist. What am I even doing? Living in a world where this isn't a thing. And so within about a week, I think Kevin had been like, all right, well, we're building a company, so let's all do that together
Wow.
and round up this crew, and let's bring this thing into and I think that was only 8 months before we announced it. I mean, it went fast.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I
And
think the speed is a testament to the power of the team. So you've got folks like Michael Fisher. I've got a background in smartphones. Other folks on the team have built smartphones and built keyboard products before. We had people with product marketing backgrounds at some of the biggest smartphone companies in the world, and even people from an industrial design perspective who had designed some of the most beloved keyboard phones in the world, all coming together to build this product. And that's how we were able to take it from idea to concept to launch as quickly as we did. And I think, when we think about why Best Buy is such a great partner, Best Buy is all about helping customers say, "Oh, I didn't know my phone could do that," right? And having these delightful experiences with technology. And Clicks is a product that, for the first time in a long time, not only transforms the way your phone looks, and it gets a lot of attention,
yeah, it
but it
definitely
also
does.
transforms the way your phone functions, and you can do so much more with it. And it's this really fun, but also very practical accessory for your iPhone. And I think that's why we're so excited to bring it to Best Buy customers, is because it dramatically transforms what you can do on the go.
I love, Jeff, when you were talking about like the reassembling of these engineers. I almost imagine like, someone who was like the king of the keyboard back in the day, and they're just waiting. They're like, I'm not doing anything. There's no more keys. Everything's a screen. I guess I'm done. They're just out like in a boat on a retirement community. And then all of a sudden they get a call and they open their phone, which has keys, of course. And you say, we need you back. The band is coming together. And they're just rejoicing. It's like, with everyone back in the room, what an interesting moment that must have been.
Yeah, I was on a beach in South America with a beard about 6 feet long,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, they had to spend several weeks to convince me to come back. I said, "No, I'm done." I had a pet dolphin. It was great, but
I heard
happy
that
to be
about
back.
you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I heard it gifted you the shirt as a going away present, the
absolutely.
broccoli florets.
And now it's my uniform.
I
Yeah,
love it. Now, Michael, obviously, coming from the like review space, I love that you talked about that it was a full body yes,
yeah,
because I would imagine you haven't had a full body yes to any piece of tech equipment, because I review a lot of cars and I review tech as well. And there's
yeah,
always something that's like, but I wish this. I wish this was a little bigger. I wish this was smaller. I wish this had a port. I wish, right?
sure.
And so, people talk to me all the time. What's your favorite car? What's the best car? It totally depends on your lifestyle. And for you as well, I imagine there's been a lot of those that you've reviewed. You said this is great, but I wish it had more battery life. I wish it were small. I wish. So for you to go
Yes.
full yes on this is kind of crazy. I think would not have expected that.
It was a very valuable moment to be gifted, frankly. I didn't do anything. I reacted, right?
Yeah,
And then
right,
and
right.
I measured that reaction. And I will say, like, I'm not saying our product is perfect. Like, there's a
Sure.
lot of iteration we're going to do, and there's a lot of changes that I would love to make. But it was the same feeling I got when I first saw, for example, like a foldable smartphone
Yeah,
before they hit the market. I was like, no, that needs to
that
exist. That makes
works.
sense. Exactly.
Yeah,
And so to be reacting in that way as a reviewer was different, because
yeah.
then you're like, well, now I get to tell the story of this, and for good, for better and worse. Reacting to that in the context of somebody who can help build it is a treat. I mean, it
Yeah.
really what a privilege,
Well,
honestly.
if you want to talk about treats, though, having somebody like Michael as part of the core team, I've been a part of building a lot of smart products, a lot of smartphones. And it's one thing to build it from an engineering perspective and say, what could a product do, or what do we want this product to do? But to have somebody like Michael with such a pulse on what customers want, and frankly, how a product is going to be perceived, not just by customers, but by the media. That was a superpower that Clicks had going into the launch, because we knew exactly how the product was going to be reviewed by the tech community. We knew exactly the feedback we were going to get from customers before we even put it out in the world, because we had Michael on our bench, and he was able to bring such attention to detail, from everything tied to how the buttons should feel, right through to the language that we should use. And so that was a great unlock for us as a new company trying to get to market fast and make a really killer first impression.
And has there been much pushback? I mean, everything is screen. It should all be screen. Cars are all screens. Your phones are all screens. And you're like, we want to go that way. And everyone's like, whoa, 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 hang on. It makes your phone bigger. It's keys. Like, there's all that kind of thought. So how have you kind of dealt with that? And what are some of the obstacles that you guys have overcome in this?
I think Jeff has a really good analogy on this, but I'm gonna jump in front of him before he shares it to say, I'm glad you mentioned cars a second ago. I mean, we started seeing this transition in cars maybe a decade ago, where you started getting more and more touch-based controls and less tactile controls, knobs and switches. And I found it very frustrating, because I happened to be reviewing cars at the time too, and I was like, no, I don't want to have to take my eyes off the road to manipulate controls to accomplish things.
Totally. Yeah.
So I have always felt that a place should continue to exist for physical keys in a lot of different contexts. And I think I'll let Jeff kind of go to our favorite example on that, our magical example.
Oh, good. I love magic.
I'm so curious to see if we're on the same wavelength.
I sure hope we are.
What I would say, Bradley, is that using a keyboard on your smartphone, it's a preference. It's like whether you're somebody who writes in a notebook with a pen and paper, or you write on a tablet. There's no right or wrong way, but people feel very strongly. It's kind of like, do you like pineapple on your pizza? Are you a Hawaiian pizza lover, right?
Like, I don't think we're ready to get into that controversy.
Oh man, this is sacrilegious.
Roast us. Good grief.
But this is the kind of the reaction that Clicks provokes, right? Everybody has a strong position. I love Hawaiian pizza. A lot of people don't, but it's what gets the conversation going. And we knew that from day one. We knew Clicks wasn't going to be a product for 1 in 10 iPhone users, for 1 in 100 iPhone users, but as you start thinking about how many iPhone people there are out there, if it's a product for 1 in 500 or 1 in 1,000, it's still a very, very big base. And keep in mind, this is an audience of people that has been underserved for a long time, and they are passionate. And when they see it, they know exactly what it is. So I think that's something that's really interesting. But what gets me so excited is that when we look at who's actually buying Clicks, it's not just people who used to use button phones in the past. There are a number of those people, but it's almost like button phones are so old that they're brand new again.
Sure, and like there's 35 millimeter film, that's back. Right.
People want these experiences. There's a little bit of retro, a little bit of nostalgia, but it's a kind of like this retro futurism. And so what we're finding is that 30% or more of people who are buying Clicks have never touched a button phone in their lives. This is the first time they're actually using buttons. And the reason that they're picking it up isn't just for the typing experience. It's because they want that screen real estate, because they want all those keyboard shortcuts and the action buttons. And so that's what gets me so excited, is that we're building a product for a whole new generation of modern smartphone users. And, we're building for the future. We're not building for the past.
I love that. And really to showcase that real estate element. So I've been playing with this. I got this a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things that I read in the information that came by, okay, you get more screen real estate. I was like, okay, but like how much really? And then you realize when my keyboard comes up, it's a good 32, 35% of my entire screen that's just lost. It's just wasted. It's like the air conditioner on and the windows down. What's the point? Right. And so I love that I didn't know that I needed it. Right. This is one of those products that like you don't know that you need it until you use it. And then you think, wow, this really is handy. There's so many aspects to it that I've personally enjoyed, not to mention just the design, the tactility, great job on the sounds that the buttons make. Let me see if I can.
There you go.
I mean, that's just great right there. That's just like,
you wouldn't even know
white noise. Put me to sleep.
How much intentionality goes into such a small, seemingly
Oh my God.
Were you driving yourself crazy with like, okay, here's 80 audio files of what the click sounds like, and by the end you're just like losing your brain and like stumbling around outside?
Everyone
Someone's like, Jeff's
arguing.
listening to audio again.
Yeah, like, well, now it's not just about the sound, it's about the pressure, it's about the
Right?
feeling, right?
There's a
You're
whole
talking
nother
about
element there too.
elements of like of differences of 5 to 10 grams between devices being like, now this feels, this is going to be easier for people to adapt. Yeah, but we're losing some of the clicks. So what do we do?
Wow.
Like just left and right all the time, and eventually settling on a thing, and then, you know, of course, reversing yourself. Like, I'll wake up the next day and I'll like try it out again. I'm like, hey Jeff, I think I was wrong yesterday. I'm sorry.
Well, and I think that was one of the hardest parts about actually bringing this product to market, Bradley, is trying to figure out where we sit on the spectrum of catering to people who have used button phones in the past and have expectations of how a button phone should be designed and how it should feel and how it should operate. And then also recognizing that a large part of the audience are people who have never typed on keys before in their lives. And so where do you sit on that spectrum of trying to build a product that caters to both of these groups? And so there were little decisions, you know, as Michael pointed out, like how clicky should the buttons be, or how much force should you have to use to engage the buttons? Another big one was how to lay out things like the numbers and symbols, because on previous button phones, the numbers appeared more like a dial pad, right? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in a 3x3 configuration. But that's not what iPhone users would expect. When you look at a virtual keyboard today, they appear all across the top. And so we spent a lot of time as a team discussing and debating and considering which approach should we take. Should we be doing something that is, you know, more akin to previous button phones? Should we do something that's more in line with the operating system that people are familiar with? And so those are the types of really challenging decisions that we had to confront on a day-by-day basis. I think we made like 100 changes between the time we had the first prototypes and the time that we actually went to market, because we just wanted to get all those details just right.
And personally, like just from a maturity perspective, that particular example was a tough one for me. Like, I wanted the keypad. Because I grew up with that layout. But the moment someone explained to me, no, look, this is how the virtual keyboard's layout, this is what the user's expecting. I was like, okay, well, I don't like it, but you are right. Let's ship it. And that was the right move 100%. Like, I think it would have been very confusing to people had we done it my way.
Well, I like, there's so many elements that make this worthwhile other than just the keyboard. So obviously it frees up screen space. Those are some of the obvious ones. What are some of the ones that maybe people don't know about, other than also the shortcuts? You talked about shortcuts, but like, are there things that you've discovered now, having lived with the product for a while, that you're like, this is kind of a cool little, I don't know, it's easier to see, it's harder to lose. Like, I don't know, maybe there's those kind of elements to it that have also been something that you've kind of, having test driven it and lived with it for so long.
Yeah, I think it was easy to characterize the you know, the selling points and, like, you know, line them up in an outline and be like, yep, shortcuts and screen space and that. For me, the tactility changes the way I work.
Okay.
I said this about, I mentioned folding phones earlier. They change the way I use a phone. Clicks changes the way I use the iPhone in a way that is rather difficult to communicate unless you've actually put your thumbs on the keys and spend a long time doing it. When I'm writing on clicks, I tend to do more journaling. I tend to do more long form stuff on it. Like, it's not, I don't just bang, I do bang out text messages all day long, but I enjoy it, and I find myself appreciating clicks a lot more when I'm writing something I either care about or that is high stakes. Because, and I think that is because, you know, to go contrary to Jeff's thrust earlier about, like, no, there are so many new people. Yeah, but I'm not a new person. I'm an old person. And I came up with that feeling under my thumbs of like, this is more than typing on glass. This actually means something. And I find that when I revert back to a virtual keyboard after using clicks for a while, I feel like what I'm saying is less consequential. This is all very woo-woo and strange.
No, it's interesting though.
Yeah, it's like an interesting blend of how a nostalgic feeling informs current day usage, yes, but like in a productive way.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I'd like to double click on something Michael just said there.
I've
been holding that one back for 20 minutes. That felt so good. I felt just as good as a tactile button under my thumb.
Oh boy, is it really still coming?
There's the ejection handle.
You probably could program like an ejector seat into this thing anyways. No, but to build on something Michael was just saying, one of the things that I love the most is hearing from customers and reading customer reviews about how they're using a product like this. And the thing that I find so fascinating is that people are using their smartphone in new ways because they have a physical keyboard attached to it. And some of the things that we're hearing and reading is that students are going into class and using their phone and clicks to take notes in lectures as opposed to setting up a laptop or a tablet with a keyboard. I've heard from people that are writing their manuscript or their novel on the subway train into work because they can do more when they're seated in the subway without having to open up a notebook or something like that. So I think that's really fascinating that when you have a product like this as an accessory to your phone, you start to use your phone in all new ways, and you don't wait to get back to your desk to do some of those writing projects that you would typically do today because you either don't trust the virtual keyboard or you get more fatigued typing on glass over a longer period of time. So I think that's really interesting to me, just in terms of answering your question around the most interesting usable elements.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the second thing is just the action button, right? So the action button was introduced on one of the more recent models of the phone, and essentially what we're doing is giving customers 36 action buttons, so you can go in and program these different buttons to invoke different shortcuts. And so some of the things that I love to do with it, I can open my favorite apps. I can identify a song that's playing just by pushing a button, and it'll listen for that song and tell me what song it is. But my favorite one, because I like to try to be a good partner to my spouse, I have a shortcut set up so that if I push the Q key, it figures out what my driving time is from my current location to my home address, puts it in a text message, and sends it to my wife. So it says, "Hi, on my way, be home in X minutes." So
Wow.
it automates that entire process just at the push of a button.
See, honey, I need this. I
Yeah,
need
see
this,
that?
honey, because for you, I'm doing this for you. Is
Doing it
this
for
is
you.
this the
Not for
Jeff?
you.
Okay. Jeff told me I need that. And when you're talking about the shortcuts, what you're basically talking about is using like a command key and something else, or can you just program it? So, I mean, certainly you don't want it so like the number one, because you're going to use that in typing, but
Yeah,
command one, command J, command whatever, and
yeah.
you can use the
There's two ways.
shortcuts. Okay.
Yeah.
There's two ways to use shortcuts. So there are all sorts of out of the box iOS shortcuts, things like Command C for copy, Command V for paste, Command H takes you to the home screen, Command Spacebar opens up search. So all of those are just there out of the box. So you can start using those right away. And then to your point, Bradley, there is the ability to program these kind of compound key combinations where you use the clicks key, which is the little icon there to the right of the keyboard, or right of the spacebar, in combination with another key on the keyboard to invoke some of these more sophisticated shortcuts that you can define yourself.
And then I think I read somewhere, just in terms of like, I wanted to go like out of the box, like a user who, can't program or whatever, and how quickly they can take it up. You guys have done some studies. It's something like 20 minutes a day. Tell me that stat. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Yeah, that arose after in Las Vegas. We were doing a bunch of demos when we first unveiled the product, and we kind of found that people would start typing on it. And the first, I think we've used a lot of permutations of it, but I think that like the first 2 minutes were kind of universally like, oh
Kind of
God.
clunky.
Yeah. Oh God. Are they
What
going
am I hitting?
Are they going to hit it? And
Yeah.
then after those, the 2 minutes passed, we found that most people would actually start getting more confident at a much faster rate than we expected. So after 20 minutes, people were quite comfortable and adroit, whether or not they had used a physical keyboard before. And I think I forgot what the extension of that is, but I think after about 2 days, you would get into a flow state with it where it was like, okay, I can use this every day. And after 2 weeks, you would miss it if you took it off.
Yeah.
I think that was the general, like,
I think that's what I remember too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating because it's, that's the thing with tech, is like, you could live your life without a lot of the products that we talk about on here aren't things you necessarily need. You don't need headphones. You don't need wired headphones. You don't need, but when you have them, you're like, wow, that allows me to do this other thing, right? So technology and products should, I feel like products should inspire you to do something or help you do something better, which thus frees up something else. Having wireless headphones is great. I have kids. I can hold both of their hands when we cross the street. If I'm talking to my mom, we're going to be there in just a few minutes, whatever.
Right.
I'm throwing that out there because we should all call our moms today. That's just a good, friendly reminder.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, good idea, right? And I think what you guys are bringing to the table too is one of those that someone may walk past, see it, and think, oh, that's just like a gadget. It's just a thing. Sure. But having hands-on and that tactile element instantly draws people in. Have you noticed that as you've gone to conventions and CES and these types of places where people are like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then after a few minutes, they're like, so is this, how do I get this? When can I get this?
Yeah, I would say the demand has kind of outpaced what we initially expected. I think we did some good modeling. We were very smart about bringing it to market, like, because you don't want to bring something to market that's going to be under adopted, and then, well, you got a problem as a company. I think we expected a lot of the hype that did appear when we announced. We did not. Well, I did not necessarily expect quite as much demand from such a wide swath of different types of people.
Yeah,
also.
Jeff was talking about that earlier, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
like so interesting.
And it's not, and I mean, Jeff, I think, was talking about the age demographic spread. I mean, for me, also gender. I think at one point I'd completely underestimated how many non-male customers were just like, oh man, this is what I'm into. And like every time we get orders coming, I'm like, well, how about that? I'm wrong again. I'm delighted to be wrong.
Wrong again.
Yeah, that's my tagline. But yeah, no, I think it's that's one of the many sort of blessings we've had over the initial launch of this first gen product.
But it is kind of like an onion, right? I find that the fact that it's so disruptive visually to the phone, it immediately catches people's attention. It's a conversation starter. So I go through the drive-through and hold up my phone for them to scan my QR code, so I get my coffee. And 9 times out of 10, the person's like, "What phone is that?"
Yeah, right. And go, as if it's one singular device. Yeah.
And then you tell them, that it's an accessory for the phone that they already own.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Whoa, tell me more." And then you kind of go beyond the fact that it's just a keyboard for typing and it does all these other things. And so it's a thread that loves to get pulled, right? And I think that's been one of our biggest assets, that it is so scroll stopping in a way.
Yeah,
right?
It's that's a good way to say.
Yeah, and so I think it demands a lot of attention. And what we've heard from customers is that they get stopped all the time. So it I think lends itself well to people who want to stand out, who want to be seen as being a little bit bold, a little bit different. And it kind of takes me back to the days when all touch phones were just becoming a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
At one time, keyboard phones were the norm, and if you were to sit down at a table, restaurant
two-way
table with
page
friends,
me, like that was a thing.
you
would do that.
Everyone would have a button phone, and then the first person who pulled out an all-touch phone, it's like, oh, who is that? What do they have that I don't have?
Right.
And now we're kind of coming full circle, where you sit down and you're the person who puts clicks on the table. It immediately draws attention to you and invites a conversation.
And what is nice about the unibody design, the way we went, because there's a lot of ways to add a keyboard to a phone. You could.
That's a good point.
There are a lot of ways that have been forgotten, but I mean, you can do sliders, you can do flips, you can do all kinds of things. And I love that specific reaction that Jeff talked about. The what phone is that? Like that is so common, and people, you almost see them preparing their expectations, because if they're asking, generally they're excited by it. And so they ask, and they are ready for you to say, well, it's something you got to import it. It's like, and it's kind of, you just get it for the keyboard. When you tell them, it's like, well, it's the phone. What phone do you have? Yeah. Okay. So it's your phone, but it's inside Clicks, and they're delighted, because they're like, oh, wait, so can I just
attainable? I can have
right,
that.
Exactly. And then they're like, oh yeah, you just plug your phone into mine here. It just works like immediately. And that's, one of the great benefits to going with this direction, because if it were another implementation like a slider, it would be hidden a lot of the time.
That's a good point.
Immediately apparent. So.
And it is nice too that it connects to a pre-existing device, just from the standpoint of not feeling like, oh, I need to buy the new thing. I need to like the new phone. And now we've got, so much tech waste, right? That's out there from cables and adapters to phones themselves. So that's really cool. Now, tell me a little bit about, obviously, if I look on the back of this, I see Founders Edition. So this is OG early. What's up? Pour one out for the Founders Edition. What's next for Click?
I just got done with meeting Jeff in New York and Kevin, and they brought some new colors. So those are fun and exciting for this sort of mid-grade period, mid cycle period we're at right now. But Jeff, take over. I'm going to start saying things I'm not allowed to say. So you should talk.
I have an action button for muting Michael's microphone so he doesn't divulge any roadmap secrets.
It's already rubbing away. You can't even see the microphone on it.
Pretty much, yeah.
So much.
It's amazing. You let me talk this much.
Bradley, it's a great question. You can think about that on a few different vectors. Michael mentioned color. We think color is a really big part of the story.
Yeah.
And so we will be continuing to experiment with color. We already added 2 great new colors, the Miami Beach, which is a beautiful pink and blue contrast. We've also got Royal Ink. Both of those are colors we offer through Best Buy. And then as we introduce more products, we'll continue to play with color. So color is definitely one thing. Making sure that we always have product for whatever the latest and greatest phone is. And so we're working really hard on our product roadmap to make sure that we are prepared for, the phone drops that, are expected in the coming months, and continuing to iterate on our product. And then looking to other ecosystems. We know people want buttons that are using other operating systems, other hardware. So we're looking really hard at that. And, we're fortunate to have somebody like Fisher who can help guide us through some of those other ecosystems and is very passionate about them. So we're certainly looking there too. But I think the other important thing to think about Clicks the business, we're not just limiting ourselves to keyboard accessories. We're really building a business that will have additional product lines that look at how to amplify and enhance other platforms, maybe beyond the smartphone. There are a lot of things that could click.
Yeah.
And so we don't see ourselves as a gadget company. We're trying to build something sustainable and that's really exciting. If you look around Best Buy and you look at your most beloved brands in music, in fitness, we want to position ourselves amongst those types of brands long term as a business, and we're taking the steps to build the dream team and assemble the funding and all of the things that we would need to get there long term.
I love that. Well, I think what's so cool about Clicks for me is it's a surprise product. It's one of those surprise and delight. You get it and you're like, wow, okay, this is really rad. It's such a conversation starter, Jeff, like you said. Nice flex on the fact that you can stop an entire line of coffee people just to talk about the device. And the fact that, Michael, you bring so many hours and hours of review to something like this. And certainly you'll be overseeing the rest of it. It's exciting. I think it's really cool. I think it's a product that's going to do really well. It's visually interesting. It's got a lot of use. And I think it's cool. So well done, guys. Yeah, excellent work.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate it, Bradley. It's nice to be able to kind of expand on it in a footprint that isn't a 60-second reel or a 10-minute YouTube video. So thanks for letting us talk at length about it.
Absolutely. So there you go, guys. That is Clicks. You can pick these up at Best Buy and buy more than one because you want different colors. Some days a yellow day, some days a Miami.
It's a fashion accessory.
Yeah,
right?
What I do.
Look at me on my phone. I think that could be. There it is. There's your marketing campaign. The ounce.
We got to license that clip.
Yeah, there it is. Done. All right, cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Bradley.
You.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just click-clacking along here on my clicks. I always learn something new with this podcast. I love it. Hopefully you did as well. Thanks for listening to Innovators Powered by Best Buy. And don't forget to subscribe to the show because we've got a lot more coming your way with some of your favorite products. But for now, just keep exploring, innovating, and embracing the future. Have a great day.